Hey there, and welcome back to the Glucose Glow Up Show. Today we're going to talk about something that you've probably tossed in your bag more than once, and that's protein bars. You've heard it everywhere. Eat more protein. Protein helps build muscle. It keeps you full. It supports longevity. And I've talked about this before. I do have an episode on some other protein items, but I feel like we naturally gravitate towards protein bars. They're quick and easy, and occasionally, have upwards of 20 to 25 grams of protein per bar. I would say that's on the higher end. Most of them are maybe a little bit less than that. Probably, and some of what we're going to talk about is they probably don't have as much protein as you think they do. Like 12 grams of protein isn't really that much, and we're going to talk about that. But here's the deal. Just because it has protein doesn't mean it's good for you. I've fallen into this trap too, especially when I really was starting to really optimize my glucose. I'd scan the shelves for things that hit my protein targets, and I didn't always realize, I had a hunch, but I didn't always realize that some of these bars come with a ton of baggage, like processed and artificial sweeteners, high glycemic carbs, just really junk oils. And I think at the time, and even, when I started doing a lot of CrossFit and trying to work on building muscle, it's just you're just thinking about protein. And we're marketed these products, and I also used to work in food marketing, so I have a little bit of that background. So we're marketed these products to be protein because that's kind of what the market wants. That's what we're looking for. There's a big push out there for protein, and I think we're taking advantage of that. The food industry is, and then the marketers kind of capitalize on that. So we're marketing on the front of the label, 15 grams of protein, but on the back there's 27 carbs, 12 grams of added sugar, and whatever else is in there, naturally and artificially flavored junk. Sometimes I will even go on a limb and say maybe some of these bars are worse than just having a Snickers bar, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe they're the same, except the Snickers bar doesn't have as much protein, right? So I think some of them are glorified candy bars, if I'm being honest. So I just want to break down. I'm not going to go specifically into every brand. I'm going to call out a couple brands and just kind of go through what I look for on the ingredient panel. Sort of talk about the protein and carb ratio and why I feel like that actually matters more than how much protein they list on the front of the package. I'm going to talk a little bit about kid-friendly items. I'm going to briefly mention a kid brand. I feel like it's worth calling out because I see it a lot of places. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about ways that maybe I would get protein on the go with no bars required. And also there is a bar on the market that I like. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. So let's get into today's episode because I feel like this is going to be something you really like. Hey there, I'm Katie, and welcome to the Glucose Glow Up Show, where I'm making blood sugar balance for non-diabetics not just important, but actually fun and approachable. I'm a girl mama, problem solver, wellness advocate, and someone who turned a deep dive into metabolic health into real-life results, like healing my insulin resistance and unlocking my fertility journey. This podcast is your backstage pass to everything I've learned, and I'm still learning about glucose, longevity, how to beat your cravings, and stop feeling hangry. Why does this all matter? Because when your blood sugar's in check, everything just feels better, from your mood to your energy and overall health. Here we'll talk about glucose tracking, eating for balance, optimizing your health, fertility, navigating the healthcare system, a holistic approach to wellness, and biohacking your way to feeling amazing for years to come. I'm in the trenches right alongside you, working daily to manage my own glucose and have more energy for the things I love. So whether you're ready to kickstart your health, deepen your understanding of how food impacts your body, or just want a relatable space to learn and grow, you're in the right place. Let's get glowing. All right, I want to start a little bit with ingredients. I'm not going to go into a super deep dive, but there is something in a lot of these protein bars and even protein powders. That's another conversation. Sucralose is something that is in almost every single protein bar. Not all, but a lot of them. And I'm going to start with a quick story because I like to be honest and authentic with you. So sucralose is something that I really, really want to avoid. The other day, though, I shared on my story, I wanted like dessert, but I also needed a little extra protein. And so I bought a Quest cookie. And so it breaks my rule a little bit, right? Because I don't want sucralose in things that I eat. It's not hard to avoid, but it can be if you're not looking out for it because it just pops up in drinks and a lot of packaged snacks and just a lot of stuff. But I figured whatever, it's like once in a while and I make these rules. So I guess I get to break my own rule. If I make them, I break them. I don't know. That's the mindset that I'm taking. So I just want to give you a little background that I am not perfect, but this is definitely, and it's not me. I don't want to shame anyone for thinking that they want to eat things that have sucralose in it. I'm just saying for me, I'm going to go through a little research as to why I really, really try and limit and avoid it at, as much as I can. But again, I am human and I like things too. And I wanted a cookie and I wanted protein. So I married the two ideas together and had a Quest chocolate chip cookie. But again, I just want to give you that background. And then I want to just talk a little bit more about sucralose and why I'm really against it, knowing that there's other things that I could have out there. So sucralose, you see it a lot on the panel. Oftentimes it's one of the last or second to last ingredients listed, which means if you don't know, the items listed, the ingredients listed go from most to least. So if it's the second to last or the last, it's a minimal amount of sucralose in the item that you're eating. However, even in small amounts, sucralose has been shown to disrupt the gut microbiome. Here's just a quick breakdown. Sucralose is a non-caloric artificial sweetener. It has been linked to alterations in glucose metabolism, insulin resistance by impacting the gut bacteria. In a study in mice, just 16 weeks of low-dose sucralose increased gut inflammation and imbalances. And when things start to get off and imbalanced, we're throwing a lot of things off. And when you're altering the gut and glucose metabolism, and it could potentially be a factor in insulin resistance. Again, if you are consuming a lot of this is a concern. If it is in the protein powder you eat every day, which it's in a lot of the major brands out there, if you're consuming it a lot, I feel like it could be a problem. Okay, so if you are you know what, I don't do this a whole lot and I want one of those Quest cookies and you had sucralose one time, I think that's fine. I really do. Again, I don't love that it alters the gut and all these things, and artificial sweeteners are just not really a great idea for our gut microbiome. But again, I think once in a while, yes, if it's in your, I'll call it out. First Form, I know has sucralose in it, their protein powder. This is about protein bars today, but a protein powder is something I have often, and if that's in there, I'm not doing that. If it's something I have all the time, it's in my routine, it's not going to be something in my house. That's just kind of a rule I have. Next thing I kind of want to look at is carbs to protein. So let's look at, I've got the First Form bar up here. This is the chocolate chip cookie dough one. So there's 20 grams of protein. Okay, cool. And a pretty long ingredient list, if I'm being honest. I really don't love that. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here we probably don't want. I'm even just right here on the spot, maltodextrin. We know how I feel about that. It's got natural flavors, probably a lot of that. Bunch of different sugars, emulsifiers, just Again, there's probably a better way to get that 20 grams of protein, but let's say you're at the gas station and this is what you got. Okay, 20 grams of protein, cool. It's also 12 grams of fat. Okay, I don't know how high quality that is if we're not looking at this super closely, but sounds good. The 20 grams of carbs really bother me, and I want to tell you why. So there's only 1 gram of fiber in there. So you're basically getting 20 grams of carbs. And so for me, if I look at this, we're getting 20 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein. They're kind of offsetting themselves, and it's almost kind of like eating a naked carb, I guess, or like carbs without cloves you may see. Like we're eating 20 grams of carbs and 20 grams of protein. I feel like it's kind of canceling that out a little bit, and I feel like this would spike my glucose. I do not have this on a CGM, but I feel like it would. Now, if this is the best you got, okay, I guess I'd probably eat it if I wanted some protein to maybe try and feel a little fuller. It only has 5 grams of sugar, so I'm okay with that, I guess. But again, there's a lot of things going on here with the ingredient list. 20 grams of carbs, to me, that's a lot. So it probably wouldn't make my yeah, let's eat that list. So often the low protein in comparison to the carbs. Let's look at another one. Let's look at the Cliff Builder bar. So we've got 22 grams of carbs and 16 grams of protein. This one I would for sure say you're not getting enough protein for the carb content, and you would definitely need to be adding more protein to a protein bar and fiber to be able to offset potential like glucose spike and issues with the carbohydrate count there. So again, like the goal of this is to be maybe hitting your macros, maybe getting protein, maybe trying to feel more full. But when the carbs are higher than the protein grams in the bar, it's sort of defeating the purpose of trying to feel full, because it's probably going to create a moderate to high glucose rise. And when your glucose goes up high, it has to come back down. And normally it comes down pretty sharply. And that's when you get that like hangry, like I need food right now feeling. Again, everyone's a little different, but I'm just looking at this from like an ingredient panel standpoint. That's not enough protein for me with 22 grams of carbs. The next one I want to look at is Quest. I talked about Quest just earlier in this show. They have sucralose, I believe, in just about every product. I don't know that I've ever seen a product Quest has bar-wise that doesn't have sucralose in it. So let's just look at this, because this one is interesting to me. So I've had these before, and it has a very minimal impact on my glucose. I'm looking at the s'mores one right now. So there's 23 grams of carbs in this one, 21 grams of protein. But what's interesting is they put a prebiotic fiber in here. So there's 12 grams of fiber, which is going to offset some of the carb count. So that is why I believe that this one does not spike my blood sugar like other ones do, because they're adding this prebiotic fiber. They also sweeten this one with some stevia, and sucralose is the very last ingredient listed on here. I mean, we could go into the gums and other things, but I'm calling out the artificial sweeteners for the gut imbalances and the gut microbiome. So again, if I was standing in the gas station and I was just like hungry and I needed that, and I didn't have a cooler, I didn't have access to like refrigeration or whatever the case is, I needed something simple and quick, this could be an option if you don't have sucralose all the time or you aren't sensitive to something like that. Because like I said, I've had these while wearing the CGM and they do not really do that much to my blood sugar, which is good, but I just don't love all the other things that come along with it. But looking at that ingredient panel or nutrition fact panel, the carb to protein and like fiber ratio is actually like working out pretty well, which is why that one is working better than the Cliff or, other ones that I've had issues with. The Think nutrition bars. I don't love the Luna or the Bear Bells. So this is Bear's. Let's see here. The caramel and cashew. So they have 18 carbs, 20 grams of protein, 3 grams of fiber. I feel pretty confident this wouldn't provide the glucose outcome I'd be looking for. I feel like that's pretty carb heavy. Natural and artificial flavors in there. And also the last ingredient is sucralose. Like I said, I just see sucralose so often in these bars. And again, if you're consuming these every day, you're getting a fair amount of sucralose in your diet, because I would guess you're probably getting it somewhere else too, maybe in a drink or something else, because it's just, I feel like it just sneaks in a lot of places and people don't even realize it, like even dressings and things like that. So sucralose is definitely something I would be on the lookout for. Just some other bars. I feel like I need to do a deep dive on these in another episode, like maybe how I would rank them, but like Power Crunch, Pure Protein I mentioned, Luna, Cliff, Think, Built, First Form, Cliff Bars, I feel, Cliff Builders too. I think there's like a few different versions of that. They contain the artificial sweeteners. There's a lot of carbs in these, a lot of added sugars in some of them. I would just be leery of these big name brand protein bars that you see in your typical grocery store. I also want to call out the kids Z bars, which is the like Cliff version of for kids. Those definitely would spike a child's glucose, and I'm not saying like we need to be like tracking our children's glucose or anything, but I'm just looking at this. So like they crafted for active kids with none of the no-nos. No high fructose corn syrup, no artificial flavors, no genetically modified ingredients. You would also see that as GMO, genetically modified ingredients. It says it's organic, it has 11 grams of whole grains, and it's a good source of fiber. It has also 5 grams of total fat. Okay, let's see what's going on here. So it's got 10 sugars in there, 24 carbs, and 9 of those sugars were added. So almost every gram of sugar in this bar is added, and a whole whopping 2 grams of protein. Yes, it says the ingredients are organic, great, but like there's so many sugars in here. The tapioca syrup, I don't know what fig paste is, cane sugar, cane syrup. I mean, it's just, this is like a sugar bar. I think there's a lot of other things we could give our kids other than these Z bars, but I think we're like programmed to think, oh, it's like these bars must be good because they've been marketed as protein for adults, and then they make a kids version, so that must just be good too. And I have never bought these. I don't plan on buying them. So things to look out for: the added sugars, the inflammatory oils, the sugar alcohols, the sucralose. Again, there's so many different names for sugar too that I would just be really careful with that. The bar that I eat occasionally is the Perfect Bar. So these are refrigerated. They are a little pricey because mostly you can buy them, I think, individually, and they do sell them in like the mini version in like maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 packs. And I think you can buy like the full size bar in like 4 packs, and they are a little pricey. Now, they do have some more wholesome ingredients in them, but you might be looking at this and going, okay, Katie, there's 27 grams of carbs in the peanut butter bar and only 17 grams of protein. That's not really working out with like what you just said. And I understand that. I have worn one of these while wearing a CGM, and I do have a moderate rise in glucose. It does go up, a fair amount, but there is some really good healthy fats in there. And I think that helps offset the carb amount. And also the carbs are coming from more wholesome ingredients. Like I said, let's just take a look at this for a second. I'm looking at the peanut butter one. 27 grams of carb. Now there is 17 grams of protein, 13 added sugars because there is honey. Honey is like the second ingredient. So I use honey in my granola bars too. I mean, it's something that like keeps it together. So it is sort of necessary. There's some oils in here like flaxseed, sesame, olive oil, pumpkin seed oil. I mean, that's like a lot of fat content. So I think that is why there's 19 grams of total fat in here. So that is why I think that it's not spiking my glucose as much because there's like a really good fat content and the carbs are coming from pretty decent sources. Now it also comes with 340 calories, which is pretty hefty for a bar in my opinion, because you can get down almost 350 calories pretty quickly. So it's not an all the time thing, but if you're looking for a snack and you don't want to make them, this is the one that I go to most often, because you can buy all kinds of bars online and they're like $50 for like 12 bars. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I certainly could make a list for you if you're willing to spend that kind of money on a protein bar. There's protein bars out there that are pretty darn good, right? But they are ridiculously expensive. So I would almost rather you get a perfect bar on occasion, make your own. I know like some people are out there making their own like recreations of perfect bars. I have not tried this yet, but I would like to. And then get your protein from somewhere else. Again, if you are traveling, you're going to the gas station, you're at the convenience store and you just need something quick, sure, protein bars can fit that bill. But otherwise, I think there's way better ways to get protein without all of this added junk in them. Here's just like, again, ways to hit your protein mark without feeling like you need to go get a protein bar. You know, there are pre-made protein shakes that aren't bad, or you could make your own. Beef jerky, beef sticks, almonds, those are great. Roasted edamame, I'm going to talk about that till the day I die. That is so good for you. It's so easy to get protein too, and it's got that crunchy, salty, if you're like looking for something like that, maybe add some string cheese, roasted chickpeas and pistachios. There's definitely other ways to get some protein other than needing to grab a protein bar and need refrigeration as well. So this was just sort of like a quick show on protein bars and just like calling out sucralose and why it kind of bothers me. I also don't want you to let the marketing fool you. Like it says 10 grams of protein on the back. Well, it probably has like 27 grams of carbs in there and it's some added sugars. And again, it's sort of like, all right, I'm not pairing my carbs. It's like I need to pair my protein bar with more protein to get it to a good ratio of like protein, fat, and carbs. Versus like, like I've talked about this before. I talked about it on this show, like the naked carbs, like just eating carbs is definitely going to spike your glucose. It's like just eating like cantaloupe. That's like a naked carb. You're going to need to pair that with some fat, fiber, protein, to like offset the spike that's going to come from that. So when you eat a protein bar that has 27 grams of carbs, that to me is like eating a naked carb, and you need to pair it with something. And at that point, the protein bar isn't worth it. So I would look at that and remember that not all protein is created equal. So if you're relying on a protein bar all the time, like that's your go-to breakfast, I would maybe rethink that. I think there's like some cleaner protein powders and things out there that you could look at. I want you to look beyond that number, look at some of the ingredients. Is sucralose something that you're consuming on a regular basis? And, is your blood sugar, are you tracking your blood sugar, and are you kind of feeling like affected? Like, did you eat that protein bar and then did you feel hungry shortly after? That would be a sign to me that the protein bar is not doing what it's supposed to do with the protein. And maybe you should look for an alternative, a different bar, or just an alternative snack in general. Let's say you really like the protein bar, like maybe you just eat half of it and you like pair it with something else, like the nuts or something else that we mentioned today, like jerky, beef sticks, something like that. Again, this was just a quick hit here on some things that I'm looking for on the protein bar label. I think they are heavily marketed, especially towards people that are gym goers or looking to lean out, and they're just calling out the protein, but there's a lot of other things that we're not looking at when it comes to those bars. And again, I didn't call every single one out. I think I'd like to make a list of like my top, which is obviously right now Perfect Bar. I can make a list of these more expensive ones. I don't know if they're worth the price tag. Maybe they are for you if you want the convenience. And then some of those ones that I would say, okay, once in a while. But if you love a certain bar and I didn't mention it and you want me to kind of take a look at it, send me a DM on Instagram at Glucose Globe. I'd love to take a look at that. I know there's so many bars out there now that it's almost hard to keep up with. But I hope you took a little bit away from today and learned something, and maybe you can go apply that, and you might just rethink your go-to snack. So until next time, keep on glowing.